process has been evolving ever since, and we always keep changing our process to keep up with the newer deliverables that we are delivering for customers.
Welcome to the Knowledgebase Ninjas Podcast, where Gowri Ramkumar of Document 360 finds the best SaaS self-service knowledge bases in the world and then interviews their creators. Let's get started with today's episode.
Good day, everyone. Our guest today is Abhishek Sura, Senior Documentation Manager at Oracle. Welcome, Abhishek, to the Knowledgebase Ninjas Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing good, Gowri. Thanks for
Great.
this opportunity.
No problem, Abhishek. So I'm really eager to know a little bit more about yourself, and please help us understand how did you initially got into documentation?
Sure. So I started writing 2 decades back, year 2000, fresh out of college. Incidentally, my first job was that of a technical writer, and to quite a few companies. There have been many ups and downs as the industry grew. But for the past 10 years, I've been with Oracle. I manage the developer documentation portion of one of the products in the Oracle Fusion Suite, which is the Oracle Sales Cloud. And we primarily manage all the developer documentation for that product. Before this, I worked with Infosys, wherein my primary client was Microsoft, and that's where was my first stint with developer documentation. That's where I started writing for web services. And it's been going well since then.
That's great. Congratulations, Abhishek. Nice to hear that. I just wanted to touch base on your educational background as well. And I understand you've done a degree in computer science, right?
Yes, this was way back where none of the technologies that we use were taught in college. But yeah, I have a degree in computer science, and the second major was in statistics.
Fantastic. So how has your educational background helped you get to where you are today?
The basic framework is actually built into your mind where you become good at understanding technology as it comes. So I've seen things move from C, C++ to we have a number of languages today that we are actually now moving to no code. But the basic framework of how technology works hasn't changed a lot. And that is what the degree actually makes you adept at, to understand and learn about technology as it changes.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about your process at Oracle. So what is your documentation process at Oracle, and who is normally involved either with defining those processes and executing those documentation process?
So the doc process as such has evolved. I think the first team of documentation in Oracle started about 25 years back.
Okay.
And the process has been evolving ever since. And we always keep changing our process to keep up with the newer deliverables that we are delivering for customers. Fortunately, at Oracle, we as writers are involved very early on, right from the time when we are planning for the feature is when we are involved in. And we do need to give our inputs in how the feature looks and how the feature is presented to the customer, not just language perspective, but as from an experience perspective as well, and the usability part of it. So from planning to design to actual development of the feature to delivery, we are there at every stage. And we're fortunate to have such a good process in place.
Great. It's nice to know that your process covers all aspects of the product. And also, I just want to understand, you've been at Oracle for over 10 years, though you mentioned the documentation has been for over 25 years. When reflecting on your time at Oracle, are there any important lessons? I'm sure there might be a lot, but if you can cite few important lessons or career highs that have shaped you as a technical writer? It'll be grateful to our audiences too.
Sure, Gowri. So, think about 10 years back uh, when we started working on API documentation for the Fusion suite of products. Our team were the first starters and we were forerunners in it. We started with planning the entire process from soup to nuts, right from getting the requirements to how the process would look, to the tools that we're going to use, to what will be the delivery points. And the first couple of releases were just internal, and we failed. It was very hectic for us. That is not how a documentation cycle has to be. The documentation cycle has to be in hand with development, has to be very natural,
Mm-hmm.
has to be consequential. That's what we learned from our first experiment. The first cycle was completely experimental. We did a lot of ad hoc things. And thankfully, by doing a lot of ad hoc things, we had a proper concrete process in place. And from documenting two APIs uh, uh, in the first experiment cycle that we had, it's been 10 years. And I think the process, the same process, which has evolved a little bit over this past 10 years, has been used to deliver on a monthly basis about uh, 800 to 900 APIs. That's the
Wow.
amount of documentation that we deliver every month. And from being a 3-month cadence, we are moved to a weekly cadence. So I think what we did right over initially was we got the 90% perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We got the first 90%, we didn't aim for the 100% because that it was a journey. To 90 to 100, that was a journey. We believe we are not yet at the 100%, but we definitely have crossed the 90% mark and we are close to actually being a very well-oiled machine process-wise, yes.
Okay. Some amazing things coming out of you, Abhishek, today. And again, your career growth, right, in Oracle, during your time at Oracle, you went from being a technical writer to a documentation manager as your current role. So, what was this transition like for you?
Was it very difficult, actually, because uh, I, I joined as a principal writer and then was a senior principal for some time, wherein I was creating processes. The management has been excellent support, and it was very easy to actually move into the role. There was nothing drastic that shook me up. The team that was reporting to me once I became a manager were all my peers. And we had the same camaraderie even after I became the manager. So it wasn't very difficult to become a manager. And we at Oracle ensure that no matter at what level we are, everybody's inputs are uh, taken into consideration. Everybody is given an opportunity to speak up, and I think that's where all of us come together and build processes and uh, make processes better.
That's great, Abhishek. Again, any few advices do you have for technical writers striving to later become managers in this space?
Same thing that applies to a writer, actually. The documentation manager's role is not a lot different. Understand the user, understand what the user needs, and understand how the user consumes your documentation under what circumstances the user uh, consumes your documentation. And like I said previously, let's first get the 90% right. The 90 to 100 is always a journey.
Yeah. True. We never spoke about your team structure, or can you help me understand a little bit about how big is your team in this documentation space?
So we are a part of the Oracle Fusion suite, and within the Fusion suite, we have multiple products and modules, various things. We are an entity by ourselves. We are entity by ourselves in Oracle. So the career path in Oracle starts right from an associate technical writer, who are usually campus hires, to a technical writer, senior principal, so on. It goes all the way right up to the executive vice president level. Yeah. So we all report to an executive vice president.
Okay. Okay. So vice president. Great. Um, is your documentation publicly available or is it private one, Abhishek?
I would say 95% of it is publicly available. We have the Oracle Help Center. You can look it up at help.oracle.com. And so it's not just one avenue that we have all our documentation is. Help Center is the primary avenue, apart from which we have an area that is only for clients, which is called the My Oracle Support, where we as writers do publish some articles that helps customers uptake our products even better. For advanced users, we have blogs that we publish. That's again on the Oracle side. Yep, those are the three avenues.
Oh, great. So, do you know if any organic search traffic is being generated from any of your documentations, Abhishek?
Absolutely, a lot actually. I think an year and a half back is when we got on to a large exercise to modernize and SEO proof all of our documentation. This was a very interesting perspective that we got to know that a lot of companies come up with blog pages and they generate content after content in order to get SEO traffic in, right? But what we forget that when we are delivering public documentation, every page of documentation that we have is a potential SEO page, right? So we kept that in mind. We SEO proofed all our pages. We try to pull our rankings up, and we have seen a lot of change. And we have a lot of links coming in and going out. And the processes that we followed were based completely on content strategy, the basic tenets of content strategy, links in and links out, keywords, and SEO proofing. We have seen a lot of improvement. So it was a very simple thing that we have a lot of documentation out there. A documentation is a sort of a lot of HTML pages. Let us SEO proof all of these HTML pages, and it has worked great for us.
Yes. Thank you for the detailed answer, Abhishek. So with this, we are kind of come to a conclusion of the general questions, but I do have 3 rapid fire round questions. So let me ask you the first one. Who have you learned the most about documentation from in your career?
I'm a manager, my current manager, who's been my manager for 10 years, Vijay Tiwari. Yep, learned a lot from him.
Thank you, Vijay. Can you share a documentation related resource you have consumed recently?
A couple of them. From tools, I saw something very interesting called History Docs, which is a tool that really keeps your developer documentation up to date. It helps you. And from a writing and process perspective, I'm a huge fan of I'd Rather Be Writing.
Great. My last question, Abhishek. What is the one piece of documentation related advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Work, keep your language crisp. Minimalism is actually, given today's attention span, I think minimalism is the thing that we need to really work on.
Very true. That was nice and crisp and short. Great. Anything I must to ask you today, Abhishek, but you would like to convey to our audiences?
No, really, I think we are good, yeah.
Okay. So thank you once again for joining this podcast series and helping us understand a little bit about yourself and a lot about your experience and how you have grown to this valuable position within the organization. I'm sure some of your advices or even on all of your points will be taken on board by many of our listeners today. So have a good day, Abhishek, and good luck with all your future projects.
Thank you, Gowri. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Knowledgebase Ninjas Podcast. Please head to iTunes, rate, and provide honest feedback on the podcast. See you next week.